Okay, so this is the Lincoln Tallman Museum in Janesville, Wisconsin. I came up here today because I was in Madison and I wanted to buy something in Janesville. And before I came, I was talking to some people about the things I believe. What else do I know about Janesville? So I know that Abraham Lincoln was here. I knew that Lincoln gave a speech in Janesville years ago, and I couldn't remember what speech he had. And I'm kind of having the same problem that Lincoln was tried to stop from happening to a lot of people. So I told the person I was talking to in my home that Lincoln gave a speech about freeing slaves or against slavery. And I Googled Abraham Lincoln, Janesville, and tried to get that speech that he gave while he was here. And I couldn't find it, but I did find this location, the Lincoln Tallman Museum. This is what I could find. I could find it. It's a really nice house. It is a really, really nice home. I advise you to come and see it. So I came up here, I went shopping, I found the Lincoln Tallman Museum. I stopped here to see it, and I stopped here to see it, and I couldn't find. I'm sorry. I'm messing up here. I stopped here to see it, and I couldn't because I wanted to know what speech Lincoln gave years ago against slavery. Some girl that I knew in middle school, was talking to me. She's telling me her name is Melon. Told me that she saw the museum. It was the Emancipation Proclamation, but I don't think that was it. I didn't think it was it. So when I came here, I walked up these stairs. Right here, and I tried the door, and then I took a walk around the property. So I walked around the property. This is they're building onto the museum here, and this is going to be where they eat food or build a kitchen. They're going to build a kitchen there so that when they have guests who have a party in that building or use this property, they can eat food here or have their food cooked here and brought to them over there. So this Tallman family are going to continue to have the life that they had. They are going to continue to do the things that they used to do. They're having guests over, and having food and social culture. Continue their culture here. So I walked around the property. As you can see, this is a very, very large home. It was all built together. Well, I can't tell you. The guy who gave me the tour asked me not to tell anyone the details of the tour because they want people to come and see the tour. But there is a bunch of things that you should know about this home. It's that you have to come and see. You have to come and learn. You have to come in here because the tour guide is going to give you not the details without a detailed story. So you'll learn a lot, but you're gonna be told a story as you go through the tour. And there is a story inside this home that lasted for like 100 years, over 100 years, within the Tallman family, and Abraham Lincoln was a part of that story. So I'm going to add those clips that the tour guide gave me. He gave me some really cool clips that I'm going to add to this video. I wish I could tell you more. I'm having a very hard time talking to you because of the technology that's in my body, preventing me from telling you the things I learned inside this home that I was in for 2.5 hours. It wasn't a normal tour. So the guy gave us an extra detailed tour. And he gave me an extra detailed tour as well. I love history. So the 2.5 hours I spent in there was the most, was like being in the YouTube, the news, or the stories we hear about. The stories we talk about, the stories that we learn about on the news. I mean, on YouTube videos, or, you know, about how things were done years ago. You walk in that home and you see, it's like you're living there for a moment. It's 85% of the stuff inside that home are original. It's original furniture. What else? I'm trying really hard to remember. I can't. I'm sorry. It's really hard for me to try to remember the things, because like I said, there's technology in my body that's stopping me from remembering what Taylor Swift is blowing kisses, making kissing noises in my ear, stopping me from remembering what I learned inside this home. There was, and I'm supposed to add that there was a gay family that showed up. So it was me, another woman, and 4 other people from the gay community that took the tour after I did. After I took the tour. And the dude that was in there was constantly trying to bend over in front of me and do things inside this home that the people inside this home who built this home would not probably let this guy do. Probably wouldn't tolerate any form of sexism or racism, any form of oppression inside this home. And the guy who was there, who took the tour with me, did it anyways. They didn't really respect the people who lived in that. I don't think the people who took the tour with me actually respected the people who lived in that home. I think they took every chance they could to either there's like a carefree attitude, laissez-faire attitude about the tour. Or like showing up to take the tour and you already know everyone that's in the tour, or everything that's inside the house. So these people were saying things, the tour guy would ask questions about things in the home, and the people who showed up to take the tour already knew those things inside the home. So I think there were bad people who took the tour with me, but I did my best to make the most of what I always wanted to do. You know, always wanted to live like 100 years ago. I always wanted to live like, well, not live 200 years ago, but to know what it was like. You know, I'm happy where I am now. I'm happy in the time I am in. You know, I don't like the people I live with. Some of the people are bad. But there are people who, there is a time period in life that you can go to when you come into this museum. So if you really are interested, like I am, in history, come see the Lincoln Tallman Museum. It is, and you live in Wisconsin, or you're near Janesville, or you're near Madison, Wisconsin, come see this museum. It is worth the time. I got an extra long time to be in the museum, but I think the tours are usually 1 hour. But come see it. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah, come see the tour. Oh, and I'm going to add the clips of the rest of the house, around the house, to the video. So yeah, just give me a moment, and I'm gonna put those together and post them on YouTube. And here again is the front. I'm gonna try my best to get the closest angle I can get before I take off of like how cool this house is. I'll show you the original entrance, and then I'm gonna take off. This is the outside of the house. The tour guide will tell you a lot about the architecture, the history, and the style, the culture of the people who lived here. So yeah, so you come this way, and the place you go to sign up for the museum, the tour guide, is right there. So you're gonna go in there, and you're gonna pay for the tour, and he's gonna take you. You're gonna begin the tour right here. This is the original front entrance to this home, but he's gonna tell you the details of that. It was really dope. If you walked around this home, you wouldn't notice that right there, but that's where they had their horses come around and then tied their horses to that post and got out, walked here, and came through that door right here. But come take the tour. It's really cool. It's really dope. I would recommend it. I think you should come see it as well.
You are visiting the home of William and Emmeline Tallman in Janesville, Wisconsin. This house is the only house in the state of Wisconsin that Abraham Lincoln ever slept in. Mr. Lincoln was giving a speech in Beloit, Wisconsin on the morning of October 1st of 1859. Mr. Tallman wanted to go see Mr. Lincoln speak. And so he went to Beloit to see Mr. Lincoln speak and asked Mr. Lincoln if he would be so kind as to give that speech to the citizens of Janesville, Wisconsin after the evening hours, more toward the evening hours. And so Lincoln said, I would, however, I don't have a place to stay. So Mr. Tallman said, we can solve that problem, and he brings him to the house here, and Lincoln stays actually 2 nights. Mr. Lincoln was speaking on abolition of slavery. Mr. Tallman was a like-minded thinker and believed in the total abolishment of slavery, and so he was very interested in what Lincoln had to say. As far as this house goes, the house was built between 1855 and 1857. Mr. Tallman's home in Rome, New York, where he was originally from, was on the Underground Railroad. It's not known, to be exact, if this house was actually on the Underground Railroad. We know that Mr. Tallman was heavily involved in abolitionist activities as far as financing abolitionist groups, and so we know where his political beliefs were, but we cannot say for sure if slaves actually stayed at this house. Mr. Tallman and Mrs. Tallman were members of a church, however, in Janesville, that 100% of the congregants of the church were abolitionists, and that church is the first congregational church in Janesville. That church did house slaves. So Mr. Tallman was certainly okay with being a part of a group that did engage in harboring slaves. He was best friends with Mr. Goodrich at the Milton House. Mr. Goodrich was a abolitionist as well, and the Milton House did harbor slaves. But we don't know if slaves actually stayed in this house. We do know that Mr. Tallman was heavily involved in the anti-slavery movement. So it wouldn't be surprising to me that slaves were harbored here at one point or another, but there wouldn't have ever been anything written down about that, because you never wanted to leave a paper trail in terms of something that somebody could come back on you for and risk the possibility of losing this property. So, but he was heavily involved in the movement. Lincoln's speech spoke of the abolishment of slavery and how he would do that. And his speech was pretty well indicated that he figured that there was going to be a civil war at some point, but he did not know when. This was when Mr. Lincoln was just going around the countryside giving speeches. He was not an announced candidate for president at that time. He was posturing himself to see how feasible it was to have a candidacy for president. And he didn't announce for president until 1860, April of 1860 actually, and then he was elected in November of 1860. So, but Lincoln, when he was on his stay here, became very good friends with the Tallmans, because his stay was actually 2 nights. Mr. and Mrs. Tallman were very gracious hosts to him. They became very good friends during his stay. They wrote letters all during the Civil War, and Lincoln and the Tallmans corresponded regularly. And Lincoln always signed his personal correspondence A. Lincoln, and we have some of those letters that we can show you. So the house itself was built at a total cost of $42,000 in 1857 money. That was gold that he paid for the house in gold. And he attempts to sell this house in 1870 for $37,000 because he wanted to move west. And he had 1865 and 1866 were bad years for the Tallmans because they lost their friend, Mr. Lincoln, in his assassination in 1865. Not only that, but they lost a daughter in 1866. So they were looking to move out of the area. However, they couldn't sell the house. So they ended up both passing away in the house in 1878. We are in the bedroom, the guest bedroom of the Lincoln Tallman house in Janesville, Wisconsin. This is the bedroom that Lincoln stayed in during his visit here. This is the actual bed that Lincoln slept in. More astonishing than that is that this white coverlet that was on the bed the nights that Lincoln was here in 1859, this is the coverlet that was on the bed. The bed is very short. Lincoln was 6 feet 4 inches tall. So he had to sleep in a semi-prone position in this bed. They would prop pillows against the headboard and sleep like this. The Tallmans had a house guest at the time that Lincoln visited the home, and his name was Lucian Hanks. And when Mr. Lincoln came to the home, Mrs. Tallman makes a comment to Mr. Tallman, "I shall have to find another place for Lucian to sleep." So Lincoln hears that and he makes a comment to Mrs. Tallman, "Well, that's all right, he can sleep with me," which was very common at that time. If you sometimes went to a boarding house or a hotel and it was overbooked, you could end up sleeping with a complete stranger. So Lincoln and Lucian were in this bed the first night, and Lucian had to go out into the hallway. And as he explained to Mrs. Tallman, the next morning, he said, "Lincoln snored so bad and tossed his legs so bad that I couldn't stand to be in bed with him."
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
That gives you a little snippet.
About it?
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Tell me when. Okay, the window that we were standing in front of on the second floor, the stained glass window, is, some people think of that as a signaling window, so that the Tallmans could signal down to the river, and if there's any slaves down there or anything like that, they would, they think that they would signal them for safe passage to come up to the Tallman house. However, us historians at the Rock County Historical Society here believe that that is just a window that is a design feature of the house. because most Grand Italianate villa-style homes had an eastern exposure stained glass window, and we believe that that's all that was a design feature of the house. We don't think that there was any signaling of any sorts that went on down to the river. And so people think their own things, and some people will say that there were slaves here. Other people will say that there were not slaves here. We can't say one way or the other because nothing was ever written down.
It's important. So I know I was told there was 4 million slaves at that time. So there's 4 million people who had to find a way for themselves. And to have that freedom, to do that is what people fought for. I think, yeah, no matter how hard life gets, no matter how difficult it could be or it was, I think the important thing was for people to have their freedom and to try to live whatever lives they could live. So whether that's starting from scratch, like the Tallmans probably did at some point, the Tallman family did, and work from there, or getting help along the way. So letting somebody help you along the way. Either way, you have the freedom to live your own life and to make the most of it. And that's the most important thing. That's the intelligent thing, right? No matter, it's a difficult thing for them, for the slaves who were freed, but it's the most intelligent thing to do. And if people didn't like it, it was because they liked the way things were. The way things were was they built a lifestyle out of it. And I think the freedom to live your own life was why these people like the Tallman sacrificed a lot of their lives. I mean, sacrificed a lot of their time while they were alive to free people. They believed in it enough to sacrifice their time, which is the most valuable thing that anybody who's alive has. Our time, and they spent their time freeing or helping to free slaves. So come see the Lincoln Tallman Museum. I think it's the best 2.5 hours I've spent in Janesville. The very best 2.5 hours I've spent in Janesville, and I've spent a lot. I spent a lot of time in Janesville, usually working, for years. But the best time I've spent in Janesville has been at this museum. Sorry about that. I had a little spit in my cheeks. Not on my cheeks, but on my lips. So I apologize about that. But yeah, come see the Lincoln Tallman Museum. It's pretty cool.